what we are trying to do is determine the different emotions and midot that are involved in our relationship with the community. And in a certain way, what I'm trying to get at is the perception of tzedakah creates a very narrow definition of all our considerations in terms of how we should relate to the community. If we call everything tzedakah, we are basically coloring everything with a broad stroke, and we're really missing a lot of the necessary mechanics that are vital to the development of a strong community, a strong nation. It's not just about chesed. Chesed is only one type of emotion and one type of midah. It's about a variety of different considerations that we have to hold on to. With Purim being just around the corner, let me give you an example of what I mean. There is a custom that's now developing where rather than sending mishloach and a note, people are now getting cards. Like they're getting cards to support some type of tzedakah, right? Tzedakah makes these cards and send it out to people and say instead of mishloach manot, a donation was made to this organization, right? And everyone thinks that that's great. And the truth is, if you look in the halachas, in the concepts of Purim, it's stated that if you have a question, you should be more involved in matanos le'evyonim than mishloach manos. So rather than spending your fortune on mishloach manos and just giving a little bit to matanos le'evyonim, you should give matanos le'evyonim more than mishloach manos. Okay. So there's some legitimacy to that idea, but the fact is that there's a tremendous point that's missing. And that is, if you look in the concept of mishloach manos and matanos le'evyonim, they both have to deal with food. Even matanos le'evyonim have to deal with food. Okay, there's an idea of giving enough for the Suda. In fact, some people basically argue the matanos le'evyonim is, the highest is inviting someone to your Purim Suda. The point is why is food so significant for both mishloach manos and for matanos le'evyonim? So the point is the food you're supposed to have, someone should be able to eat it right away. And the fact is what's supposed to be the objective, I think the Chasam Sofer says this, is in terms of mishloach manos, it's the development of reyos. It's to develop friendly feelings between individuals. That's the whole working here. There's a specific purpose in terms of creating communal bonding. And communal bonding is formed by people actually giving things to each other and being involved in this type of connection. Even in terms of matanos le'evyonim, that's specifically involved in making sure that the ani has a Sudas Purim. But it's supposed to be involved in the gaiety of the event, the festive event. And the idea of it being reyus is, in terms of mishloach manos, is very, very significant. So, what comes about, there's an interesting Sridei Eish I just saw. The Sridei Eish asks a question. Why don't we say a bracha before we do mishloach manos? Why isn't there a bracha on mishloach manos? So, the first thing that comes to mind is, in fact, why isn't there a bracha on tzedakah? Why is there a bracha on tzedakah? So the answer is given by the Rashba is basically because you need someone else involved. The way most people understand that is that you can't say a bracha because you, in doing the act, do not have full control of wherever a mitzvah can be done. In terms of tzedakah, the mitzvah is not done until there is a Kabbalah. And therefore the other person's das, the other person's intent, is necessary in order to do the mitzvah. So his argument is that you have to have that by tzedakah. Until, this is a classic argument, Rush was asking about tzedakah and so forth, until you actually have the ani take it and do a Kabbalah, there's no mitzvah. So when are you going to do the bracha? You say the bracha over the asiyasa and you give it to them. But the point is that you have no idea if the mitzvah will ever occur. That's why some people say there's no bracha in terms of kedushin. The bracha we do al erisin. Okay, there's a whole question: is it birchas a mitzvah? Is it birchas hodah? What exactly is the bracha that we do under the chuppah? But the fact is, there's a problem because it's not a kedushin until the woman is makabel. So, in terms of saying the bracha, how do you know there's going to be a mitzvah? So, the classic answer is that any mitzvah that you don't have bilas over, needs a das acher to be involved, cannot be involved in terms of this mitzvah. Okay, you can't say a bracha. So the fact is, the Sridei Aisha asks a very good question. But Mishloach Manos is not necessary. Mishloach Manos, the mitzvah, is totally in the giving. As long as you give them as Mishloach Manos, Mishloach sending gifts, as long as you give, whether the person's makabel or not, you've done your mitzvah. So why isn't there a bracha? So he gives a few different answers and so forth, but he says a remarkable word. He says, because the whole point of Mishloach Manos is to develop reyes, friendship. When we say a bracha, right, it's Baruch Asher Kiddushanu Mitzvotav Vitzivanu. The essence is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzvah, right? That's why there are people who say that Sfardim women don't say a birchas mitzvah, a mitzvah seishon was man grama, because there's a whole machlokes. Can women say vitzivanu? So Sfardim paskin no, right? But Ashkenazim paskin yes. But the point is that how can women say when they're not mitzvah and so forth and so forth? They're not commanded on mitzvah seishon was man grama. But the point is that in this case over here,
on which mitzvahs?
On mitzvahs that are time oriented, right? They're not commanded. So our Sfarim actually, the women in Sfarim, women do not say a bracha. They take a little bit of they don't say a bracha, okay? Because they can't say v'tzivanu. So the 3-day system is very, very interesting. He says, but that's specifically also why you don't want to say a bracha for Mishloach Manos, because the essence of a bracha is v'tzivanu. And to really develop reyes and ahava, the feeling of communal connection, you want it that the person is giving the object not because he's commanded to, but because it comes from his heart. He wants to show friendship. And therefore, the idea of the bracha would take away from the very essence of what is supposed to be a motivation in the mitzvah. Fascinating idea. There's a lot of issues on this and so forth and so forth. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but the point is what the Sridei Aisha is developing is the idea that the mitzvah of Mishloach Manos is about developing bonds between people, friendships. Yeah.
The problem with it is that if that's the purpose of giving the gift,
right,
then you could give the gift any day. The fact that you give it on Purim is vitzivana, is because we're commanded to give it on Purim.
But the fact is focusing on the fact that you're commanded takes away from the fact that it's supposed to be a
But that's the reason you give it.
The fact is that the Sridei Aisha actually gets into it, and he actually says that the fact we give it on a day is only, forget his exact language, he says that the idea is really around the year. It just so happens we do it on Purim. But the point is, he really considers, it's almost, he compares it to the mitzvahs of Parshas Zachor. Really, you have a command to remember it the whole year. You have a command to remember. The way you have it is once a year you should have the statement. There's an idea of remembering, and once a year you do it. So he's really develops this idea that really it's actually supposed to permeate the concept of reyes. Just the Mishloach Manos is supposed to happen on Purim. But the fact is what he's saying is that in the concept, and by the way, there are a lot of issues in what he says. There's a lot of questions about it and so forth and so forth. We can go into a whole discussion of the issue in terms of how you motivate it and so forth and so forth. But the point is what he's getting at in a certain level is that one of the objectives we have in our relationships with others is to develop a sense of friendship. Friendship is very, very different than tzedakah. Okay? Tzedakah can also be friendship. That's why he says Matanos Lev Yonam has an aspect of Mishloach Manos in it. and the reason you give food ready to be eaten is so the person can enjoy it right away. But the objective is to develop a different type of relationship, a relationship of friendship. That has value as well. See, there's an interesting thing that happens in terms of this. For example, we all know the halacha by tzedakah that it's better if a person who's giving and a person who's receiving doesn't know, right? Okay, it's better if it's all done b'tzina, right? That one person doesn't know. But in terms of friendship, in terms of giving a gift as an act of friendship, it's a chiyuv to make sure the person knows that you gave a gift. If you want to send a present to a friend, okay, and you say, I want to send it in private, it's not good. Because a friend should know that you're sending him a gift and that you care about him. And that, hey, I want to give you a birthday present. Okay? The point is that this is what I'm leading up to, is the different emotions that are involved in developing community. When you define everything as tzedakah, you miss the point. I think I might have mentioned this to you before. Running an organization, that's a learning organization, I always find it funny. There's one person in the States, okay, it's only happened, well, might have happened a couple times in Canada, but every year in the States, we get a donation of cash in an envelope in the mail with no sign of who it came from and so forth and so forth. And we look at this and say, the person's missing the point. That person is doing it because he thinks it's the tzedakah. And tzedakah should be done b'tzina. It's true. Technical tzedakah, giving to a tzedakah, which is technically giving to an ani, then there's concerns for embarrassing. But when you give funds to a yeshiva, or you give funds to show support for an organization, right? Now, I'm not getting into whether you want the covenant. I'm not getting into the fact you want to be anonymous because you're afraid someone else will start asking and so forth and so forth, and also you're not interested in being in the covenant. That's something different. But in terms of the organization, knowing that you are a supporter of the organization, that you're on the banner of their limud Torah or something like that, that's very important. You want to vote for it. So the point is, you have to understand the different things that you're doing. In terms of giving, this is where it becomes very significant in terms of understanding the difference between chesed on one level and tzedakah. Chesed, helping out a friend, it's part of reus. It's part of developing friendship. So therefore, you want everyone to know. Okay? If you do a chesed for someone else, okay, there's this balancing, okay, and this is where you get into issues of the difference between chesed and tzedakah, the needs of an individual and so forth. There's a certain situation where you're helping another person, you want to help them, and you're concerned that it'll be embarrassing for that person. Okay? Person's a nani. Because why? Because every person wants to carry their own weight. Right? There's a concept that people want to carry their own weight. Right? We don't want to have something for nothing. That's the very essence of why Kodesh Baruch Hu created this world. According to Zohar, He created this world. This classic concept that brought that in Hashkafa is the reason God created this world is so that person could earn Olam Haba. Not just have a gift from God for free, but to earn Olam Haba. Because it's essential to our essence as human beings that we earn it. We want to feel it's ours. That's a very important aspect in Hashkafa. So the fact is when someone's in an ani situation and has to ask, it's a little bit embarrassing. So there's a certain aspect of being in a weakened position. Therefore there's a sensitivity we have to that weakened position. But there's other aspects which is just part of the human condition. Okay, a midwife helping a woman give birth, the necessary chesed to where you need more than one person to do something, right? You want to you want to get together like a what do you call this? What do you call it? Knitting bees, or when back when they want the community to come together and create something, whatever. Or someone else needs help, and we need a bunch of people to pull together, and then that person will help out someone else. Barn raising. The point is that's a very different emotion. And if you apply the concept of tzedakah to that situation where it's hidden and no one knows, what's missing is the fact that you haven't developed race. The fact is, no one knows that you really are a person who cares about other people. Race being friendship. So that's why it's significant to me that we all know the different motivations. So last year I talked about community. Right? The last year I talked about the necessity of understanding how you are a member of the community. And you have obligations as a member of the community, right? Because you have communal mitzvot. You have communal obligations. Two classical examples are communal mitzvot, such as we need entities to do mitzvahs. We need a mikvah. Right? The same way a person has to buy a kiddush cup, we as a community need a mikvah. We need a base knesset. There's other things where communities have to come together and like roads. Right, community has to have roads, has to have walls. I mean, one of the great questions that existed in halacha is when they had Jewish communities, how do you divide who will give money for a wall around the city? The point is that's a different emotion. When you give that money, it's not tzedakah. It's you fulfilling your own need, but recognizing that you as a member of the community are part of the communal need. But then there comes this other issue of when you're helping out someone. And there's a very strong difference between the motivation that is an aspect of I am showing friendship, which necessitates you knowing that this is coming from me, because we are trying to develop this relationship in the sense of the bonding of the community, mishloach manos. Imagine somebody saying mishloach manos and not putting his name to it. The whole point is lost. We want to show caring between people. But the fact is, and that has a value as well. That's one of the reasons that in terms of doing these cards, and I'm not trying to take away from people doing tzedakah, but the point is I always found difficulties with it. In lieu of you sending shloch money, you send a card to someone. And this is where human psychology gets involved. Right? You send a card to someone that says, in lieu of sending you Mishloach Manos, I made a donation to this charity. It's nice. You're acknowledging me. The fact is, I still, if you would have sent me candy, I would have had, the sweet. It would have made me feel good. And if remember, and that's significant. Remember, Yitzchak Avinu, right, had a reason for sending off Esav to get him food before he wanted to give a bracha. Yeah.
Because when they send those cards,
it
says that a donation has been made in your name.
Right. That's true. That's true, but you still haven't benefited from it. See, the fact is that in terms of recognizing you, it's clearly been done. But the fact is, that's why I'm trying to go to I want to go to the case of Yitzchak. Yitzchak Avinu said, right, he told Esav to go and bring him food, the food that he liked, before he give the bracha. Why? Because he said that if he wanted to benefit from Esav's work and have the pleasure of that food, the pleasure of food and pleasure of Esav bringing the food would have strengthened his bracha in terms of his feeling towards Esav. He would have been thankful. See, one of the things that's significant is we're all human beings, right? If someone, and you're right, I'm not trying to take away from the value of tzedakah.
Is it accurate actually?
What?
When it says the donation has been made in your name?
Oh, I think so. I think the fact
people who get the money have no idea who you're sending it to.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Just occurred to me.
Okay, but
maybe the sender has that feeling.
The sender has that feeling.
Yeah.
But what I'm pointing out is that it's very, very different. If you have a certain chocolate bar you like, a guy comes up to you and says, I just bought you this chocolate, and you taste it, and you have the hana of the chocolate bar. There's natural emotions that develop. Those are emotions that develop reyes. Now, the truth is, though, is when people start putting out, fancy shloch manos saying don't do matanos le'avonim, that's what the halacha talks about. If you're going to focus on something, focus on matanos le'avonim. Okay, I think that the idea of these institutions, like I think our shul does it, the Beit does it, what do you call it, the Beit Yaakov I think does it, that sends out packages of food. You give money and they put it out and send other people, and the package of food is different by how many people they gave. There at least is that other side to it, that the person does have a feeling of benefit. We're again working with the human psyche. And Yitzchak Avinu was working out. Look at Yitzchak Avinu, right? It's said by Yitzchak Avinu that he was going to be affected by the good taste of the food that Esav would prepare for him. So if it's good enough for Yitzchak, it's good enough for us to be human beings. But the thing is that what I'm trying to say is that it's very, very significant to understand all the different connotations to what the Torah is doing in instructing us. And it's very, very significant to understand that if we apply one concept to everything, we're missing what is really going on. There are different emotions that were necessary in terms of building a community. There's different considerations, and there's different mitzvot. And when we only use the word tzedakah, and the technical definition of tzedakah is giving to an ani, we are basically not seeing the full wealth of full concept of what is necessary in terms of developing a total Torah community. So when you give to yeshivas, I'll tell you, it develops into certain problems, because the fact is you take using the word tzedakah to apply, let's say, when you're giving money to a Torah institution, for development of a kollel, let's say, or whatever, right? In a certain way, that takes away from the chashivas of what you're doing. Because tzedakah involves there's an ani, okay, neba. It's unfortunate. If you believe that a kollel is a think tank of the Jewish world, and that people in the kollel are fellows of the think tank, right? Can you imagine going into the secular world and saying to someone who's a member of a think tank, calling it charity? Wait a second. The broad sense, but you think I live on charity? I am an important member of this community. I think about important issues. I investigate important issues. Therefore, when people give to this cause, they're giving to a certain cause. And the other side of the coin is to understand the full range of the causes. On the other hand, a lot of people give to yeshivas, and they don't see the distinction in the fact that you have to give to aniyim. The fact that you give to some yeshivas doesn't mean that the people who are aniyim aren't being taken care of. Again, the technical definition of tzedakah is giving to an ani. When you talk about meiser ani, it's meiser ani is the technical. When you talk about meiser ksafim, the 10% that people are supposed to give. Most people really hold it's not really a chiv, whatever, but the 10%. But the fact is we generally give it to yeshivas and different things like that. But the point is do you really consider that you have to really consider the poor individuals? It's a very different cause. Are you familiar with all the different causes? And not one of them is necessarily more significant than another one, because a community needs all those aspects. Okay, you need mishloach manos to develop friendship between people in the community. And this is what happens when you start defining things in different ways. You have a question? No. Okay, so the point is, if you look in the article which I referred to, which for the people in Kosher is available on the Nishma website,
which is linked to from
which is linked from Oshushtu. Okay, the fact is, that's why I broke down in terms of different aspects of mitzvot and knowing what is involved in the various mitzvot in terms of mitzvah fulfillment, and knowing the specific definition of every mitzvah that you do to understand the various emotions that are involved. And the idea that when you give funds, you should have in mind this kind of aspects. Like, for example, give you an example. In Hilchos Kibbud Avim, right? It's brought down. There's a whole question of when you fulfill the mitzvahs Hilchos Kibbud Avim. There's a question of Gemara Kedushin. Is it from the money of the parents or from the money of the child? What does it mean? So, if you look at the technical definition of Kibbud Avim, it is assisting a parent with their living and so forth. So specifically, there's a specific mitzvah in bringing a parent food. Okay, parent says, "I want a drink" or "I want food." There's a specific idea. I want food. So the question emerges. The parent says, "I want a sandwich, kosher sandwich. I want a kosher sandwich." Okay, that's one of the arguments. One of the parents says, "Does want a kosher sandwich," and you don't bring it to him. But the fact is, I want a kosher sandwich. So when you bring them a kosher sandwich, who has to pay for the sandwich? The parent or the child? Okay. So the fact is that halacha is it's mishalav. Okay, it's mostly your parents' money. Okay, there's a famous story. I've heard it from the Chasam Sofer, but I've heard it from many people that a person once went up to the Chasam Sofer, and he lived like away from his parents' house, like had to go by train. So he asked the Chasam Sofer. He says, "Should go visit his parents," and he says, "Who has to pay for the? Is it Mishalav or Mishal Ben? Who paid for the mitzvah?" So it's Mishal Ben. We pass Mishalav. It's for the parents. Okay, so my parents aren't paying for the train ticket, so I don't have to. So I don't have to pay for the train ticket. And Chasam Sofer said, "You're absolutely right. Start walking." In other words, the fact is that you have to get there. How you get there is your business. The point is, he was obviously a joking person. But then the Shulchan Aruch says something very interesting. It says it's obviously mishalav. What happens if a parent can't afford it?
Well, isn't it a situation of also if the kids are older and again, if a parent can't afford it,
right,
or a situation where the kids are children anyway. So
right, but the point, what happens if a parent can't afford it? Right. So then, technically, in the laws of Tzedakah, right, your family comes first. So you should say, okay, then my Tzedakah should go to my parents first. It makes sense. But then the halacha says a remarkable statement. But you should not pay for what you do to your parents from money you set aside for Tzedakah. Why? It's not coveted for the parents. Unless it's really necessary that you have to use that money, to use other money. The tzedakah goes to an ani who basically has a relationship of a certain nature with you. But the point is, as parents, you have to have covered for. Parents are still parents. So the point is that, and that's a significant understanding of the dynamics of mitzvahs, and the significant understanding of the dynamics of what we're supposed to think about in various mitzvahs. So that's why last week I dealt a lot with community, because the fact is we have to understand our role in the community. We have to understand we give funds to a community. It's not we're giving the community, we're giving to our own obligation. We have to have a shul. Okay? And that's not necessarily a negative thing. It's we, and it creates a different type of unity. Right? We are that unity. Sometimes it's stuck that you have an I-thou relationship, right? To apply the words of a great Christian philosopher. Okay, but the fact is, like an I-thou relationship. Okay, okay. The point is that when you give the funds, right? There are different emotions involved. And when you say it's tzedakah, it's like I and thou, I'm giving to you. But if you're giving to the shul, it's giving to us. I'm part of the we, and therefore I, as an individual who's a member of the we, if I have more of an ability to give towards the we, that also benefits me, it's a different type of connection. And it's not simply I thou, it's we. And then there's other ideas in terms of the emotions. What do you do to give to someone else? This really gets in terms of chesed.
If you give to something from which you benefit,
yeah,
I am part of the we.
Right.
Do you have to reduce your calculation based on what you benefit?
In terms of?
Let's say your shul consists of 10 people.
Right.
And you donate $100.
Okay.
You actually donate 10 of it to yourself at that point.
Okay.
Do you have to view it as 90 that you gave to the community?
But the point is I don't think so, because the fact is you're thinking in terms of still breaking it down, that there's what I'm benefiting and what other people are benefiting. There's no I and thou. There's no me benefiting, other people benefiting. It's all we are benefiting. So now, if you're saying I'm giving more than my proportional share, right? That's one thing. Or would you say maybe then you get into issues of should I carry more because I'm wealthier and so forth and so forth. That's it. But it still has to be that sense of we.
No, what I'm saying is that in the sense of a shul, you're paying for a service as opposed to a donation to an owner.
I think that's what I'm trying to get at. You're thinking in terms of that spectrum of selfish, selfless, right? There's what I give for me, and then what I give to others. And this perception that what I give to others is the one that is more morally valuable. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to say, no, that's not the only perception. Once you start breaking it down, you're breaking it down the fact that there is a concept called the we. And there's no I there's no I in team. The fact is you are giving to the continuation of this entity. In other words, let's say you want to build a shul, and you want to have it that the shul, you have extra money, and you want to have it that you want to pay for something that make the shul really beautiful, okay? And you can afford it, and other members of the shul can't afford it, and you're going to cover more of the cost, right? The way I would see it is that it's not that I'm giving it, but there's a value because I'm carrying tzedakah for other people. I'm giving so other people to benefit as well. No, it's a value that the we can have this shul. Now maybe there has to be a keres hatov because you've carried a little bit more of the weight, but the idea is in your perspective, you've created something that we all benefit from, and therefore you've given it as part of the we. It's in a certain way, it's like a father, helps out his family, right? He doesn't think in terms of, well, there's one piece of chicken for me, that's my chicken, and then there's the other chicken I give to my other members of the family. It's the fact that I brought home chicken for the whole family, right? It's thinking a different sense of that collective. It's a different type of dynamic. If you think in terms of a family, I think it's a good example of it. In a lot of ways, you think in terms of a family. If you think that it's I'm doing chesed to my children, or I'm doing tzedakah to my children, it will break down the family unit. There has to be that sort of mythical gestalt of family. And everyone carries their weight, and obviously someone carries more weight, especially when the kids are younger, and so to create that perception. See, the thing is you're trying to think in terms of different emotions, not just the emotions of I thou, of self and selfless. You're trying to think in emotions of community, of developing reyes, all these other aspects, right? When you think in terms of a kid, if you get a kid, you give a kid a toy, right? They'll sit there and say, listen, you can't afford the toy yourself, you're like an ani, so I bought you a toy. This parent feels good. The kid says thank you, and the kid wants the kid to feel thank you, develops that type of feeling. Anyway, so what I'm really trying to get at is again, the idea of different emotions. And I'm going to get back to Chesed and Tzedakah, and perhaps focus on that a little bit more next week, about the difference between Chesed and Tzedakah, because with Chesed, what you want to do is you want to develop not just giving, but you want to develop that sense of bonding. Right? Not every Chesed, and I see this from a lot of people. There's a lot of people who when they do Chesed, it's like this. They're so caught up on the fact that I can't get anything. Right? I give, I don't take back. Right? You know, I want to be a giver. The fact is, I point this out to people, is that if you give in developing a relationship and you never allow that person to reciprocate, to invite you over to their house, you're always inviting people over, and you don't reciprocate that this guy wants to invite you over sometimes, you're not going to create that bonding. There's different types of emotions. And the fact is that Chesed, there are times when it gets to Tzedakah, which is, you don't want to embarrass the guy, but there's other times where you want to let the person know that you're the one doing the Chesed, right? That you've stepped in, and you're happy to do this, and not that you're doing this tit for tat, that you know someone will do that for you, right? And that now you owe me, so you better do it for me. Not that idea, but the fact is that we're collected, and I know if I need someone, because we all need help sometimes, I know you'll be there for me, not you, but someone else will be there for me, right? Because we have that friendship that we're all in it together. Okay. So the thing is, again, we have to understand the different aspects of mitzvot. And when we put out funds, we have to understand the various different emotions that should come with those funds. So, going back to the position I talked about, it sounds like a little bit like difficult, like I seem to say, giving to stuff is not such a good idea. No, obviously giving. How about the organizations are very good. But the theory is you have to understand that maybe you give certain people shloch manos, maybe you just don't have the ability to. You want to recognize 50 people. You just can't put together and run around on Purim and give everyone food. To 50 people. It's just crazy, right? Okay. The point is maybe you send out a letter saying you have certain people you give to and say, hey, listen, I just want to acknowledge you. I want you to know I'm thinking about you. I can't schlep over with you. It's over, but I'm thinking with you. That's it. But there's a value in that as well. But the idea is understand that we are human, and because we're human, we have emotions that we have to deal with. The idea of that looking upon us as all tzaddikim is mistaken. I think that's one of the great lessons from Yitzchak Avinu, right? He was a human being who understood that if I have something good to eat given to me by my son, right, it will make me be in simcha and will enhance my bracha to him, right? Because he's a human being, right? That's the reality. You do favors to the human beings, there's going to be a natural reaction to it. That's the way Kosh Baruch Hu created us, and that's one of the benefits. And if you don't let people give to you, and it's going to lead to missing the point. Okay, so that's part of that development.